This lesson will be over triads. Technically, a triad is any group of three notes. However, the triads we're going to be learning about are also frequently referred to as chords, and you've probably heard of chords before. So remember, these are groups of three notes or three-note chords that we're calling triads. And just like intervals, there are different types of triads, but we'll learn all about each type in turn. Every triad is made up of three notes, and as you can see here, the triads we're going to be learning about have one note we refer to as the root, one note we refer to as the third, and one note that we refer to as the fifth. Any idea why they're called the root, the third, and the fifth? Well, the third is a third above the root, and the fifth is a fifth above the root. So if you know your thirds and your fifths, then you won't have any trouble with triads at all. Hopefully you remember your intervals very well. Right here, we have a major triad. So what we want to do is analyze this triad. Take a minute and tell me what kind of a third is this on the bottom, from the root to the third. It's a major third. Now tell me, what kind of a fifth do we have between the root and the fifth? A perfect fifth. Just for fun, let's also identify what kind of third we have from the third to the fifth. It's a minor third. Now again, if you're still having trouble identifying intervals, you really need to go back and review that before you continue on with learning about triads, because you won't be able to build triads if you can't build and identify thirds and fifths. So major triads always have a major third from the root to the third and a perfect fifth from the root to the fifth. Some people prefer to think of triads as two thirds stacked on top of each other, in which case you can think it has a major third on the bottom and a minor third on top. So this is a C major triad. Now, if I wanted to make a C minor triad, I would only change one note. Now, instead of an E natural, I have an E flat. So, what kind of third do I now have from the root to the third? A minor third. Very good. And what kind of fifth do I have from the root to the fifth? Well, it's still the same, right? It's still a perfect fifth because we didn't change that note. And from the third to the fifth, what kind of third is that? It's a major third. So, major triads have a major third on the bottom, minor third on top, and a perfect fifth from the root to the fifth. Minor triads have a minor third on the bottom and a major third on top, and they still have a perfect fifth from the root to the fifth. I'd like to play both of those for you before we go on. This is a major triad, and this is a minor triad. Different people associate different things with the different triads, but most frequently, especially when children learn triads, they learn that major triads sound happy and minor triads sound sad. So I'll put a little face to help us remember. Okay, next we'll learn about diminished triads. What's different between the minor triad and the diminished triad? Look at these two and compare them. With our diminished triad, we still have the same minor third, but now from the root to the fifth, what kind of a fifth do we have? Not a perfect fifth, a diminished fifth. And from the third to the fifth, what kind of third is that? That's also a minor third. Sometimes people say that diminished triads sound scary. Let's hear a diminished triad. So here's our major triad. Here's our minor triad. And here's our diminished triad. There's one more kind of triad that we need to learn about. Can you guess what it is? An augmented triad. What kind of a third do we have between the root and the third here? A major third. And what kind of fifth do we have from the root to the fifth? It's an augmented fifth. And what kind of third do we have from the third to the fifth? Also a major third. Now, sometimes people find the diminished and augmented triads to be more dissonant than the major and minor triads. And this is kind of interesting because they're also symmetrical. And we tend to imagine that we would find symmetrical things pleasing. But in fact, just like when you learn about composition in a drawing class, in music also we find symmetrical things to be less than pleasing, or at least more dissonant. So let's hear the augmented triad now. Sometimes people say the augmented triad sounds a little weird.